the Trump administration was not happy with the results. Some states from all across the country that are taking these drastic measures and trying to suppress the vote. So we're here, really lobby our Democrat colleagues, our Republicans here in Congress, the Biden administration, that we need help. We can't do this alone. This is the second time we've done this. As you mentioned, we're risking arrest. We're risking a whole lot to be here, but we all know we've come unified that this is that important.
Oh, for the, forevermore. That was Texas State Representative Mary Perez. And if you were to read the tweets of some of these Democrat lawmakers, they write these things like they're going to war. Like, oh, we're making this brave sacrifice, the courage. And then they, from what I understand, chartered 2 planes, which I'm sure they needed an ID for, and then bought a case of Miller Lite, which, ew, that explains a lot. And then they're headed to D.C. where they're threatening to stay for 3 weeks. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who joins us via Skype, is not having it. And from what I understand, there was a vote already to arrest them if they return to the state, the Republic of Texas. Governor, thank you so much for joining us. I know you got a lot on your plate today. So what is the latest? I mean, I realize that the authority is limited outside of the state borders, but if they try to return to Texas, they can be compelled to go to Austin, correct?
That's correct. So one of the most important steps that had to be taken was the one that was made earlier today by the Texas House of Representatives, where they did vote, such that anytime any of these Democrats step foot into the state of Texas, they can and they will be arrested. They will be brought to the Capitol. They will be contained in the Capitol. And what that means is they're going to have to stay out of the state of Texas as long as they want to prevent Texas from being able to pass any type of law that I put on to. Dana, what that means is I'm going to be calling special session after special session after special session. They may be out of the state for a month, could be 10 months, who knows? If they're gone too long, their seats may have to be vacated and be filled by a special election if they don't step back and come back to the Lone Star State.
And aren't they, Governor, aren't they also kind of playing around with redistricting too? I mean, I don't stay away because then ultimately, doesn't that mean Republicans are going to be deciding where redistricting is going to work?
Well, technically, no, because we would not be able to vote as we still would not have the quorum to do so. And so we don't want, they are risking the salaries of their employees because what I did when they broke regular session as governor, I line item vetoed for the entire legislative branch. I knew I was going to give them the opportunity to step up and replace that salary, but they have now made themselves not to fund the legislative branch of government in the state of Texas. Employees, they're going to be losing not just their salaries, but also their benefits and their health care if these Democrats don't return to the state of Texas ever. Listen, it's more than just their employees that we care about. It's our fellow Texans who are not having their business taken care of. And, Dana, it's who are paying taxpayer dollars to their salaries while they're taking this taxpayer-funded junket off to Washington, D.C. It's reprehensible. Dana, this would be bad in any state. But Texans away from a fight. And that's exactly what they did. Right. They quit. They were guts to step up and argue what their position was. And what makes it even more amazing, Dana, as you probably know, one thing they're trying to urge up there in Washington, D.C. is an end to the filibuster in the U.S. Senate. And so how do they go about trying to end the filibuster? They engage in a filibuster themselves.
Right.
So they are just outright hypocrites.
Exactly. Using this as a filibuster. We're talking to Texas Governor Greg Abbott here on the Dana Show. Now, when you read everything that they've said, Governor, the way that they portray the voting bill that has been included in the spec, like, oh, well, this is Texas Republicans restricting voters' votes, making it to where only white Republicans can vote. But when I went, what was being determined here, it's just, from what I said, voting times and days are the same across the state, expanding from what I saw, some early voting, but then all of the emergency things that helped to facilitate the lockdown because of the pandemic. These are things that were not regular Texas. Those were things that you and other lawmakers had called into play because at home, not everything can stay because we're not still locked down. Yes, no one's being stopped that I saw. So are they actually increasing early voting or to make it regular the times and days across the?
So Dana, their argument that what we're trying to do is restricting their right to vote is probably the biggest lie in politics, which is saying something because we've seen some pretty big lies in politics before. Because you started getting it right. Here's what this law does. It adds hours to vote, not subtracts. And Texas already has 12 days of early voting, and we are adding more hours for those days of early voting. And so let's compare Texas with the state that President Biden votes in, Delaware. Delaware has 0 hours of early voting. If there's any state in the country that's engaged in voter suppression voting, it is Delaware, not Texas. Texas has one of the easiest states in the country to vote early, and we're making sure everybody's going to have a chance to vote early. We're doing 2 things. One is, as you know, Dana, from Article 1, Section 4 of the United States Constitution, it gives the power to the states, not counties, to create the time, place, and manner for voting. In the pandemic year, Harris County, which is where Houston is, they come up with their own rules about how voting was going to take place in Harris County, which is completely contrary to the United States Constitution. So we're very simply writing a law saying that Harris County and all counties have to follow the state rules. They cannot make their own rules. The other thing that we're doing, Dan, and that is there is a reality, and that is voter fraud is more common through the mail-in ballot process. And we're making sure that we secure mail-in ballot process. Let me just give you a couple of quick examples. Barack Obama appointed a judge in Corpus Christi, Texas, who wrote an opinion. When I was the Attorney General, we argued this case about voter fraud, and this Barack Obama judge said that voter fraud occurs, quote, in abundance as it concerns mail-in ballot process in the state of Texas. Also, the Obama and Biden administration, they ferreted out voter fraud in South Texas when they sent a team of FBI agents as well as a U.S. attorney to investigate and prosecute a voter fraud scheme that was using cocaine to buy these mail-in ballots. So mail-in ballot fraud does occur in the state of Texas. And even some of those Democrats up there in Washington, D.C. have said from the Texas House floor that one way to have more secure elections in the state of Texas and improve election integrity is to make sure that we have reforms in mail-in ballots. So everyone agrees in a bipartisan way to secure mail-in ballots. And so this is much ado about nothing. This is just political gimmickry on the parts of the Democrats. But I'm going to tell you this last thing. They're going to pay a very heavy price at the ballot box because we know from past efforts by the Democrats to flee the state during redistricting that some of them lost their jobs in the upcoming elections because voters in Texas do not appreciate this. When they go to a job, they can't cut and run early because things aren't going their way. They will lose their paycheck. And the same thing is going to happen to many of these House members who are up in Washington, D.C. right now because their voters will have nothing about these quitters who are not doing the job they were elected to do. If they were elected to go to Austin, Texas, cast votes and do their job because they're not doing their job, many of them will not get elected next time.
Yeah, I actually just was going to bring this up, talking with Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Texas Policy Foundation said, what is it, over half of Texans said they do not support members staging walkouts and denying the legislature the quorum that it needs in order to hold votes. That's not going to play out it's not going to play out well at all at the ballot box. Also, Governor, do we know, were these, do we know that if these were chartered planes, did they fly on commercial aircraft? And regardless of whether it was chartered or a commercial aircraft, why were they all pictured not wearing masks? I mean, I would get arrested if I did what they did on a commercial flight.
Right. I mean, again, Dan, it's more hypocrisy because, as you know, it's the Democrats who insist you got to wear a mask, whether it be on a plane or otherwise. And it's the Biden administration that has imposed the mask requirement on airplanes. And so, again, the Democrats in Texas are being hypocrites about what President Biden has been preaching to the Democrats across the country in the first place. But as it concerns the planes, listen, we're investigating right now who provided these planes. We will get to the bottom of it and expose to the public about who's paying for this junket up there. But regardless of who paid for the plane, it's Texas taxpayers who are paying their salaries and their staffs who are doing nothing right now. And Texas taxpayers are going to get very angry about the fact that they're paying taxpayer dollars just for Democrats to abandon doing their job.
Yeah, I would like to know how much in taxpayer dollars these lawmakers have wasted by taking this vacation out to Washington, D.C. I see them taking pictures of their food and taking selfies, and they're going on MSNBC, and they're really loving the attention that they're getting. Meanwhile, I know, Governor, that there are a lot of other legislative items that are included in this special session, not just election integrity. What are some of the other ones that we're now waiting around on because Democrats won't come back?
I'll tell you one that every Texan is concerned about, and that is skyrocketing property taxes.
Yes.
We have an agenda item that will reduce property taxes in Texas. The only reason why property taxes are not being reduced right now is because Democrats have left the state. Democrats are singularly responsible for not reducing property taxes in Texas. There are other things that are very important. We have retired teachers who are going to get finance that they desperately need. Our foster care kids need support. That was an item that Democrats requested to be put on the agenda. And so an agenda item that Democrats wanted, they are not going to be able to get. But also involves more than that. Dana, you know that the number one issue in the state of Texas is border security. Mm-hmm. Border security was on the special session agenda. And the only reason why it's not more secure is because of Democrats. While they were in the process of putting together their getaway plan, I was in a meeting on Saturday with border sheriffs from Democrat counties. The Democrat sheriffs and the Democrat administrative leaders of those counties, they want Texas to step up and help them better secure the border. And the only reason why that's not happening right now is because Democrats have left the state, not doing the job. We were going to directly fund these counties' ability to better arrest and jail people coming across the border. And that's not happening now because Democrats are not doing their job.
Ooh, and I know, Governor, talking with Texas Governor Greg Abbott, there's some states that have sent some help to the border, Florida, South Dakota as well. Are there any other states that have pledged some support to you?
So this is great because there's about a dozen states now, Dana, and there's a reason for it. This is an American issue. It's not just Texas. What comes across the border goes in every state across the country. Let me just give you one quick example, and that's the very deadly drug fentanyl. 2 milligrams of fentanyl is a deadly dose. Just the Texas Department of Public Safety, just in the first 5 months of this year, they've apprehended enough fentanyl to kill every man, woman, and child in the entire state of Texas, as well as the entire state of New York. This is deadly, dangerous, and is going to all of these other states, which is exactly why these other states are doing the right thing by providing their resources to help us better secure the border.
There we go. Wow, we're gonna be watching all of this and see when they come back. And you've pledged to call special session after special session if they can't get back for this one. Will they be met? One last quick question: will they be met at the border when they land back in Austin? Will they be met by Rangers?
Yeah, they're going to have a very nice escort.
There you go. That's the soundbite right there. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, we appreciate you joining us today, sir. Thank you so much. We'll keep an eye on what happens.